Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Sleepless Cinematic Podcast, where we explore our shared love for watching and discussing movies recorded in the late after-work hours, often in lieu of a good night's rest. I'm Emilio.
I'm Julian.
And I'm Madeline. The three of us are colleagues at a Midtown Manhattan music school. Yes, music is what brings us together, but movies are what keep us together talking at the end of the night. So we've created some order to this ongoing trend by recording these conversations, considering an overarching theme while we cycle through 5 unique guidelines for engagement.
You can email us at sleeplesscinematicpod@gmail.com. Seriously, we'd love to hear from you. And you can also follow us on Instagram and TikTok for updates, highlights, clips, and other visual supplements to the audio we record at the handle Sleepless Cinematic Pod.
In addition to these main episodes, we record and release bonus one-off episodes as we see fit. And while we do this, you, the listener, can count on the three of us doing what we've grown to love, foregoing sleep for a discussion about movies every other week.
And this week, we continue our current cycle of movies related to audience interrogation with a category that we call close-up. We're going to actually shift gears a tiny bit and focus on something a little bit more broad, a genre of film.
Yes, very fitting that we should focus on this for our close-up segment, because we are going to be talking about found footage movies. I think found footage often goes hand in hand with the term horror. Some of the movies we're discussing certainly fit that mold. The first of these 3 found footage movies we'll be discussing is maybe the most totemic one in the entire genre. Not the first, but certainly the codifier of found footage, the Blair Witch Project from 1999.
Yeah, and then the next movie we're going to talk about is Creep, which is a film from 2014, and it's directed by Patrick Brice, and it stars Mark Duplass.
And then we're going to be rounding it out with Searching from 2018, directed by Aneesh Chaganty and starring John Cho and Deborah Messing.
And for this episode, we're delighted to bring on a guest who we met when attending the soft opening of Night Owl Video in Brooklyn earlier this year. That place certainly fostered a love connection that night because I couldn't wait to meet back up and talk about movies with this guy. He is the writer and director of the film Ben and Suzanne, A Reunion in 4 Parts, which is out and available right now. It just hit digital, so go check it out. The buzz on this film has been great. Our guest is also a podcaster and has waxed poetic about French filmmaker Eric Rohmer at length on Rohmercast, which can be found on all the streaming platforms. You know, if that's what this guy's into, he's serious about his movies. And another fun point of intersection, our guest is a musician. He plays guitar in the low-key emo supergroup Love of Everything. He's a mensch, multi-talented, and we couldn't be more excited to have him here with us. Shaun Seneviratne, welcome to the Sleepless Cinematic Podcast.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm super pumped to talk about all these movies and go on all the different tangents, found footage style.
I love it. I love it, man.
Sweet.
Shaun, what's your relationship to found footage films? I know that's a weird question, but like if you had to describe it, you know, in a minute or so, what kind of relationship have you had with those kinds of films?
In general, I'd say I don't love them. But I also think they do something really, really well, which is like capture a moment, right? And I think a movie at its best is a collection of moments that we see in sequence, and then that builds to a larger feeling or meaning at the end. And I think found footage films could really do that well. I remember when I first saw the Blair Witch Project, I was like 13 or 14 or something like that. And that final image, like you remember the time you see that image for the first time, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
It feels so potent. And I think seeing something like Blair Witch, like it snaps you out of a kind of like bourgeois quality of like Hollywood mainstream film to see something so raw and so real. And so like,
I love that.
I don't know, like I could really appreciate found footage films, even though I don't necessarily like love them or seek them out.
I'm kind of with you on that.
I feel like I'm in almost exactly the same boat. Like I really enjoyed visiting these and revisiting some of them, but I don't know that it's a genre that I really seek out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
It makes me think of like the way when people ask me, are you a horror movie guy or something like that? It makes me think of the answer I give to that, which is yes, I like a lot of horror movies, but it's not from like a really specialized interest in the genre. It's just, I just like good movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I feel the same way about found footage as a genre. You know, it's not necessarily that I like whenever a new found footage movie comes out that I have to seek it out just because it's the genre.
And I feel like there was a moment, maybe like early 2010s, when found footage was maybe a little like it was a genre that we
oversaturated.
It was too oversaturated. We were releasing too many of these with too large of budgets. Like the thing I like about these three that we're going to talk about is that they're all kind of like low budget DIY passion projects to various extents.
It also crosses over with mumblecore.
Yeah.
Right? Especially particularly with Creep, right?
Yeah.
So it's like that
Big time.
moment of like camera use, DV camera accessibility. And so then you do have this boom in like the late 2010s or whatever.
That was one of the big realizations for me visiting and revisiting the films that we're going to talk about today is just the mumblecore overlap.
Yeah.
Is right there for the taking.
And adding to that, like the Blair Witch Project and Creep are 15 years apart. They're released 15 years apart. And yet you can still feel their connection to this greater movement of mumblecore, which I think it's one of those labels a little bit like in music, like grunge, where none of the people in the movement would call it that.
Right.
It's more of a term that's been like, if not retrofitted, just kind of applied to the movement by the people taking it in. But, you know, the Blair Witch Project comes closer to the dawn of what we would call mumblecore, probably even predating it by a few years. Creep comes a little later, like when Mark Duplass, who stars in the film, is already established as an icon of that movement.
Yeah.
And it was a Blumhouse movie.
Yeah.
A real merger, I think.
Like apparently Mark Duplass is like friends with Jason Blum. And I think they made like the first, we'll get into this when we talk about the movie.
Yeah.
I think they made that kind of first act and then kind of like shopped it around. I think Bloom just watched it like kind of as a favor.
Yeah.
Cool.
And still greenlit it.
Let's jump into Blair Witch Project.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Blair Witch Project, it's a very well-known movie. You're probably not going to confuse it with very much, but just to be sure, the Blair Witch Project is not to be confused with other titles such as the Scranton Witch Project, which is a brief scene in an episode of The Office.
I was like, is this an episode of The Office?
Yes, this is The
It's
Office.
not an entire episode. It's actually a part of the segment when, in season 3, when Michael welcomes the new employees who have transferred from Stamford and is, you know, in a famous scene, his orientation video for them is the Lazy Sunday parody, Lazy Scranton. But then Jim, speaking to the camera, says, you know, at least it's not the Scranton Witch Project. And then you briefly see a clip of Michael in a darkened office going, I'm so scared. But no.
Jim speaking to the camera is very found footage. Very
This is
on
true.
brand.
Yeah. Yes. But no, this is not the Scranton Witch Project. It is the film that inspired it.
Very nice. And while both of these films are about younger people and are both low on traditional plot elements, the Blair Witch Project is not to be confused with the Florida Project, which is Sean Baker's film from 2017. These are two very different movies, but they're both about difficult things for our main characters to process.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
And also that Sean Baker, I don't think this was the case for the Florida Project, but famously for the movie that preceded that, Tangerine, he shot the entire thing on an iPhone.
Yes, that is true.
Though it's not a found footage movie, I mean, that I guess makes it a cousin of the genre.
Yeah, it feels
Right.
adjacent.
Yeah, kind of borrowing, I guess, from some of the formal elements that are very present in found footage films.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I am glad that we don't live in a world where there are like a bunch of Blair Witch Project sequels and remakes. But there was a Blair Witch video game. So we should not confuse this with the Blair Witch video game. And this isn't like, you may be thinking like, oh, was this a PlayStation 2 video game when the movie came out? No, this was a fairly recent video game. Let me actually look up. This video game came out in 2019.
Whoa.
So this is a fairly recent video game. I did not play it. I considered it, and then it was like $30. So I was like, it's not worth doing just for this episode. But let me know if the Blair Witch video game is any good, and I will consider it.
Yeah. Email us at sleeplesscinematicpod@gmail.com. So, Julian, what the hell is the Blair Witch Project all about?
So, in October 1994, 3 young film students named Heather, Josh, and Mike venture into the woods outside of Burkittsville, Maryland, to investigate the urban legend of the so-called Blair Witch, with 2 cameras in tow to film their journey. They begin by interviewing locals to learn what they know about this entity, and are regaled with a number of horror stories, compelling but not clearly confirmable. After that, they camp out in the woods with an initially good supply of food and a map to guide them, but after hearing strange noises in the distance during their first night in the woods, the group realize they may actually be up against some real danger. One thing leads to another, and the noises in the night persist. A strange rock formation appears outside of their tent after night 2, and their map disappears before they come upon an eerie set of twig formations, or twig sculptures, really, in the trees. From this point onward, the now lost upstarts are forced to improvise in continuing their investigation and simply survive from day to day, a task which becomes increasingly difficult as their food and participants become fewer and the terrors of the alleged Blair Witch draw closer and closer.
Very well done.
Thank
I like
you.
that. Had we all seen the Blair Witch Project before revisiting it for this conversation?
Yes, but I'll say I watched it when also, like Shaun, I was maybe like 13. I think I remember watching it at a friend's house, and I think we turned it off, and I don't think it was like, oh, it's too scary. Like, I think that I, at 13, was like, this is boring. Like, and I'm...
Yo, low-key kind of boring.
Yeah.
Like, that's one of the notes I took.
Yeah, so I turned it off at 13. I think I made it about a third of the way through. So this is my first time watching it in full.
I think I'm kind of with you. I similarly saw it. I think I might have been 12 or 13. And I think you're set up, Shaun, about what you come to understand are the constructs of a movie, of a Hollywood film. I think I was not ready for so much of that to get bucked.
Yeah, for this film to have none of that whatsoever.
Yeah, totally. And I do remember being kind of freaked out by it. But honestly, watching it for our conversation was kind of a revelation for me. So yes, it was a rewatch, but like in earnest, it was a first time watch.
Yeah, that's how I feel. And this rewatch, I was trying my hardest to set myself up to be scared. Like, I watched it alone in the middle of the night, like with all the lights off and the curtains closed. I was like, I will force myself to be scared by this movie.
I watched it in the same circumstances. But this movie, like, it was a rewatch for me too, but my first watch was in a very different place in life. The first time I saw it was only about a year and a half before this recording.
Oh, wow.
March 31st, 2024.
There we go.
If I can't say it, why shouldn't I? But at that time, preceding actually watching it, it was one of those totemic movies that I was kind of amazed I had never gotten to before then.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I watched it on the Criterion Channel. I think it was part of their 1999 collection. Tons of great movies from that year. And I think that the good thing about watching it at that age, 27 at the time, was that I was not in the place that many people watching it as a teenager would be, where I was expecting like jump scares or things like that. I was ready to, to take it in and say like, okay, I'm just going to let this be what it is. I was impressed in that first viewing. I continue to be impressed in the rewatches I've done for this conversation. I totally get why it is the codifier of the found footage genre.
Cool. Shaun, how about you, man?
So this was my third time watching it. So the first time being when I was like 13, renting it on video. So didn't see it in theaters, renting it on video, watching it at home with my one of my neighborhood friends at the time, Neil Bakaru, and us like at that last image being like, yo, what the fuck? And like just the thought of someone standing in a corner, it planted a new terrifying mental image that you could carry on with you for the rest of your life as nightmares. And I hadn't rewatched it in a long time. And so I'm a film teacher as well. And so we were doing a thing called Film Fridays where we'd be able to watch, like, because our class was back then at my old school was like a 2.5 hour class. So we could really watch a full movie. So it was like, let's watch the Blair Witch Project. And part of the reason I wanted to show it too is like examples of collaboration. So like that was like my like teacher tie-in, because it's like, okay, we're going to see a film crew, but we're also going to see stress, right? And like what happens once stress starts to factor into it. And I remember the kids being so annoyed at like, why did he throw the map away? Like, why would he do that? And
they are
it was cool
amateurs.
yeah, right. They're
yeah.
amateurs and they're freaking out, right? You know, I think that's an interesting thing, like watching horror. And then like as I'm like teaching it, like it's so easy as an audience to be like, oh, why would they do that? And like, you know, from the comfort of our own home and the point of view that we have as the audience where we may know a little bit more. But it's like, no, if anyone was in this situation, they would be just as freaked out. Don't think you would be cool and rational in any horror situation.
Yeah. And I feel like he's like, we might as well not even have a map because he doesn't trust her to even read the map. So he's like, it does not matter if we have one or not. We're still lost.
Yeah, he's totally right. Yeah.
That gets to some of what I think is really effective about the movie, which is that, you know, as much as there is this presumption of a supernatural circumstance going on, I think a lot of what's scary about this movie is the content within it that could totally happen in real life.
Yeah, like I like to hike. I'd not say like a super avid hiker, but I'm like a casually avid hiker, I'd say. I haven't been in a lot of situations where I've gotten turned around, but I've been in occasional situations where I've gotten turned around from a trail or like the sun is setting way before I thought it was going to. And it's a very vulnerable kind of feeling. I think it's one of the most vulnerable places you can be.
Yeah.
So I do sympathize with that mindset of being isolated from people, not really having any way out.
Watching it this time kind of reminded me a little bit of, do you guys remember that film Open Water?
No.
I never saw that, but I know what you're talking about.
I remember that one planted some fears in my head. And
I'd say I am more afraid of the ocean than I am of the woods.
Right. I totally agree with you. But there's a kernel, I think, of the same thing, which is like you're in an environment that is foreign to you.
Yeah.
And there are probably things out there that know their way around a lot better.
Yeah.
And most of them are probably not going to hurt you, but some of them might.
Yeah.
And so you're kind of living with a lot of the same fear.
Totally.
You know.
Some really elemental fears that they can tap into, right? Because it's like nature, once you lose your bearings, and nighttime, right? Like everything, once you lose light, you don't know what can possibly happen.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just like not having access to the visual information, like as a person in the forest or in the water at night or wherever, and as an audience is a scary thing, right? Because then it's all just like the suggestion through reaction to the fear. And so like forest can definitely be pretty scary. You know, I'm not a hiker, and so like I'm always just like, let's not stray. Like we are on the path.
What I'm not is a camper, and I think this movie might be part of the reason why.
That's a good point. Yeah, and they did set up camp a number of times.
And I'm not a camper either. I like hiking, but I don't think I'm much of like a go out into the woods hiker. I'm more of like a go to Prospect Park or Central Park hiker.
Those are not hikes. That is not
those
hiking.
are walks. Yeah.
Those are walks.
Well,
those are strolls.
For a city kid, that might be
Fair
more.
enough.
That tells you how much of a hiker I am. But so we've established that this movie is more about these elemental fears, but it is combined with something specifically modern, which is that it is all on camera consciously. It's not, the fictional understanding of the camera depicting what happens that we have in most films. This is a story that is being consciously filmed. That is why it exists. And my favorite line in the Blair Witch Project comes around the middle of the movie when Mike says to Heather, after they've all it's been established that they're lost, Mike says to Heather, "I see why you like this camera, because it's not quite reality." And in addition, there's the possibility of supernatural occurrences going on in the film's plot. But there's a constant tension going on in it as well, due to the fact that all of these events are being filmed, and these characters have arguments relating to that. So how do we all interpret the camera's presence as really the driver of this story in both the film internally and the experience of it as an audience member?
That's a great question.
Thank you.
So one of the things I was thinking of, like, in reflecting on that, is like, the camera is a tool, right? So there's like Alexandra Ostruk wrote this essay about like the Kino eye and or the camera stilo, right? So like the camera as a pen and like the extension of the eye, and like some of these kind of POV movies, found footage movies, it really sort of like extends that idea.
Sure.
And then I think with this, you get to see like the role of the camera in like direct cinema, which is like, yes, it documents, but it also interrogates. And I think that's something that the Blair Witch Project does really well. You know, I love the first act of the Blair Witch Project. That's actually like my favorite part of the movie.
Same here.
Because it's just like the way they start this journey and like the way it captures the friend dynamics and the relationships and like this crew like really starting to come together. The way it talks to the locals that they're interviewing at like the convenience store before they head into the woods with all these amazing like non-professional actors, right?
I love that little girl that like covers the mouth of the mom.
It's so good, and it feels so real.
It does. It really
kind of
does.
reminded me too that like anyone can act, right? Like if you give someone a prompt, they could perform on camera. Now they might not be able to modulate their performance like a professional actor would, but like they could respond to something and they can deliver something, and that was really cool. And then as the film goes on and it becomes like an interrogating tool, like when they're like confronting each other, when she's confronting herself as she's filming herself in the woods with that confessional where she's like, I'm sorry to like everyone's mom. She has to be honest. Like it forces you to be honest while also depicting a certain reality, like you said in the quote, the way you kind of want to see reality, or it's like it's not quite reality. Yeah, like I think with the film, the camera can really exemplify both of those qualities really well.
Yeah, very well said.
Yeah, and I mean, I think another driver in the story is that kind of what you're alluding to in this quote. Josh and Mike, at a certain point, are so fed up with the fact that this continues to be a film for Heather.
Yeah.
You know, that they continue to say things like she's still making a movie. Like they are scared for their lives, yet they know that she still has that kernel of motivation to just like make a good film.
Yeah.
She has a line eventually later where she's like, I think this is like all I can do right now.
Yeah.
And
it's all I have left.
It's all I have left. Thank you. Yeah. I think that statement has actually aged really well.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think we live in a society now that 100% would feel that way.
Totally.
If they were super lost or whatever, someone would still be trying to film it, would still think that like whatever they're doing or whatever they might capture would be important to somebody eventually.
Yeah. And I'll be curious, like once we get to searching, because that is kind of this evolution into technology. But I do think that, you know, we are, as you're saying, now we're living in a society where found footage is kind of even more relevant to our current society than it was in 1999.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
I'd love to see a remake of Blair Witch Project that was all TikTok
like
and like it's Gen Z kids. I mean, it could really be interesting, right? Because it's like there's then like even more of a performativity that's like a part of it, right?
Yeah.
Where it's just like, okay, hey guys, so like I'm living right now. We're lost in the woods. You know, here's my pin drop. But like, I don't know. It's like there's still a way to like make it even scarier with the fact that like they also really want to document it for clout or for safety or for whatever reason, right? Like now there's like an access and an avenue out into the world, like in a direct way.
Right.
Although it's interesting because I think this movie does fall apart if there's GPS on phones.
Yeah.
Which,
if you have service.
Yeah. Right.
Then,
If you have service, then it's all good.
Yeah.
But I think it makes your point even funnier and the performativeness of something like that even more hilarious, that you're like, no, it's cool. Like we're a 20-minute walk away from like an Uber stop, but we're still acting like we don't know where we're at and we would never be found.
And well, I mean, the episode in this cycle before this one, we talked about the movies Nightcrawler and Civil War, which are both about journalism.
Yeah.
And that even though the Blair Witch Project delivers you something that's aesthetically pretty different, that element of like the camera driving the story is, you know, a really striking similarity across these films. And I think too, like, you know, in assessing all the different meanings you can glean from the Blair Witch Project, like I was really thinking a lot in prep for this conversation about all the layers of curiosity that go into it. So, I mean, you see what's at the root of this story, that these three film students have heard this urban legend about the Blair Witch and they want to investigate. And I mean, it's really compelling to see at the beginning how they behave when this is just a myth versus when they come closer to experiencing it as a reality. I think it's very believable.
Yeah.
You see them satisfying in little ways their curiosity. And then, well, you think about the fact that you as a viewer are watching this and you are curious too.
Yeah.
But then think about the layer in the middle, which is this is found footage. Who found the footage and how did they get there?
And the editing as well.
Exactly. Yeah. That's someone, had to go into those woods, ostensibly go into that house, recover those cameras, and honor the concept that Heather and Josh and Mike created with their films to present it like this. These are all fictional layers, but think about that.
Yeah.
That's well, awesome. Also with that final shot, who's operating the camera, right? Because we see the video camera drop, and that was Mike. And then we hear Heather's screams like a little bit distant while the black and white 16 millimeter camera reveals the other friend that had gone missing, like in the corner, unless that was Mike.
I can't remember that was
exactly.
Mike.
I think that was Mike.
Yeah. Okay, that was Mike over there, right?
Yeah.
So like, I was just like, wait, is that Heather operating the 16 millimeter camera still? Is it the witch? I wasn't quite sure.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and watch it. And maybe that's when Josh comes back.
Comes back, maybe.
Yeah.
No, I want to just go back to something you said, Julian, which is, to me, the big revelation watching this movie was the acting. I could not believe how freaking good the acting is in this movie.
So
it is shocking.
Particularly because a lot of it is improvised.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was surprised how effective fear was being transmitted from these actors or these characters. Like the screams all felt so visceral. That is going to stick with me long after. Yes, the visuals towards the end, and I think the tension that just ramps up, all of that I think is a strength of the film. But man, the acting is just like shocking. I was not ready to appreciate the acting.
I totally agree. And I think a big piece of that is the fact that, like, listening to the commentary, they are like small crew out in the woods with this cast for like 6 days. They are, other than I think one night when they go to a hotel, they are like sleeping in tents. A lot of times actually slightly separate from the cast because the crew is kind of working ahead, going to the next location, getting things set up. So these people really are just like kind of wandering through the woods for 6 days with like limited food. It's cold, sleeping in a tent on the ground. So it does have that method element where you are kind of torturing these people. Like they're giving great performances, and I totally agree. But I think part of that is brought out by the means in which this is made.
Absolutely. I think you're 100% right.
Yeah. And when you think, to this whole point of blurring the line between fiction and reality, that when you think about the fact that they actually had to scream help in those scenes. And, there are probably people who heard that scream of help and didn't know it was in a movie.
Yeah.
With these movies, they live and die by the performances, right? Like with a found footage movie, if the performance isn't there, it really isn't going to work, right? Because we need to believe that like we are seeing like filmed reality in some way. And there's some moments in Searching, for example, where some of the like John Chu is amazing, but some of the other performances, like the brother character, like can come close to killing it a little bit, right? Like where a performance isn't quite as strong, you could feel the acting, you feel the performance. It's like, oh man, like you sense like, okay, I'm delivering information, I am delivering exposition. You see the cinematic conceit in it, but like when the performance is on point, like the 3 leads in Blair Witch Project, like it's completely immersive. Yeah, no, like incredible performances.
Love that. Yeah, when I think about the zeitgeist that the Blair Witch Project came out in, right, 1999, I was thinking about this. We're only 3 years removed from Scream, right?
Yeah.
Which totally revitalized the horror genre and kind of brought about this like self-aware slasher type of film.
Yeah.
And it's only been a couple of years, but Hollywood is already churning out like a ton of these. Like we get I Know What You Did Last Summer, we get Urban Legend, we get Halloween H2O, and then we get I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. There's a bunch of others, but so like literally in the 3 years between Scream and the Blair Witch Project, there's already self-aware slasher fatigue. I find it really fascinating that audiences were already ready, I think, for a zag.
Totally. And, our Spinal Tap 2 episode came out a few weeks ago, but as of this recording, it's the episode we dropped today, and it's the episode we recorded most recently. And I was thinking about that with this movie and also with Creep that we'll talk about. because these are movies that are improvisatory. Like this Blair Witch Project is not a movie that had like a formal script.
Right.
And I think that's part of the zag that you're talking about is people want a fresh take on this kind of slasher film. One way to have a fresh take is the found footage genre, but also the idea that these are actors who are improvising. You know, these are actors that a lot of them, even when the dialogue is written, they've written a lot of it themselves.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
Heather Donahue writes that kind of ending monologue where she's going straight to the camera and apologizing to the, you know, Josh
Families
and Mike's
and stuff,
mothers. She writes that. And
Yeah.
I think that just brings this whole other element to it that reminds me of something like Spinal Tap.
I'm so glad you're saying that because I was thinking about Spinal Tap as well. Yeah. And like, I mean, of course, it's fresh in our minds because of the sequel, but I think that the Blair Witch Project is to horror movies what This Is Spinal Tap is to music movies.
Yeah, and to like mockumentary.
Yeah. Mockumentaries. I like that.
Which this kind of is too, because that's what Heather's making.
Yeah. In spite of how salient it is, that doesn't get said enough about the Blair Witch Project. Maybe it's taken for granted. But then I think too about how like, you know, like in all the different ways that it goes against the grain of horror movie form. You know, you get little hints of other classic horror movies. I mean, there's a scene where one of the characters mentions you can debate whether it's horror, but Deliverance directly.
Yeah.
There's things about it that make me think of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but also like a more recent movie like Barbarian, Zach Kreger's debut directorial feature. When you talk about this movie going against general horror movie form, like I think The Witch is very strongly implied to be present, but never empirically confirmed.
Right. No, that's true.
Yeah. And there's also like The Witch is the way that I think the town has conceptualized the things that have happened, but it could be a different supernatural element.
That's true.
That's not just like a witch, but maybe something a bit more ephemeral.
Yeah, or maybe there's just like some serial killer that lives in the woods or something.
Too.
You know, the ambiguity of that mixed with the sense that everything you see on screen is something that is plausible. The Blair Witch Project strikes a balance of that I think very few other movies do.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Are there any little details that we want to call out from Blair Witch before we move on?
Yeah, I think it's maybe I already spoke about it, but like really like the non-professional actors and the way they built the friendship and the way they built that relationship up was really, really great. I also kind of love that she's like a video journalism major. Like that's the feeling of it. It's like this sort of like school news report for like her senior thesis or whatever in her journalism class, even though she's making like a documentary, but it feels very like newsy.
Yeah, she does the like reporting to camera bit in the beginning in the cemetery.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love that scene.
Yeah.
Also, just the element of switching between the digital camera and the 16 millimeter camera.
Yeah, I like that touch too.
You know, that there's a real dichotomy to what's black and white and what's in color.
That reminded me a little bit of Bamboozled.
Yeah. And this is 1 year before that.
Exactly, yeah. One of the things that I wanted to shout out quickly was the marketing campaign behind this movie.
Yeah.
It's actually something that I remember almost more than the film, is that this movie was publicized online and that there was a website that had all the lore about this Blair Witch, and to just plant a digital breadcrumb trail so that before this movie ever came out, there would be a sense of this actually potentially being real. It was such a part of how people talked about this.
Yeah.
Was it real? Is there actually some truth to this? They even apparently, I read that in some type of public record, they actually took the 3 main actors and had them filed as missing or deceased.
Yeah.
So that if anybody wanted to look them up, there was a chance that they would actually see that they were potentially not alive.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to me.
That is very weird.
That's nuts.
And I think the 3 actors have spoken about like having some regrets about like using their real names, and probably also that.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I remember watching this for the first time. Like I said, I was like 13, and I think this probably would have been like maybe, I'm guessing 6 years after the movie came out. That's when I was 13. So I'm like 6 or 7 years after it came out. And I think it was far enough removed that I genuinely didn't know if it was based on a true story. Like I put on this DVD or VHS or whatever it was at a friend's house, and it tells me like this is a real thing that happened, and we're kind of like, okay, like we don't know.
Right.
Genuinely.
No, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, just other little thing, from those scenes towards the end of like mundane moments in spite of the horror that's going on. The scene when Heather's like putting on a bag and her hair gets caught.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
totally. Yeah.
Just such a relatable moment of struggle.
Yeah. Well, at least for the two of us. I don't know if you have that. I mean, you've had long hair, I think, previously in your life.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. We talked a long time ago about a moment when I hair hopped.
Yeah. Shout out to our past guest and colleague, Anthony Hollick.
Good friend.
Yes, that's true.
And I think like also moments with like total darkness, like that's a great use of like cinema where it's like all you see is a flashlight. And I love that idea of like all you can see is what the light is revealing. And so like it's really cool when it's like pitch black and all you see is like the circular glow of the flashlight and whatever that seems to be flashing on.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome, man.
Just a few little aesthetic touches that, I mean, the tree branch formations are such a iconic part of the movie. I had to note that in the scene when, speaking of interrogation, that when I think it's Mike or Josh is turning the camera on Heather and you see her crying, the way the tree branches look behind her head in that scene kind of evokes the twig sculptures from earlier in the movie. I just noticed that and thought, just life serving the scene. Great. I love that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
On reflection, I thought it was really interesting that the way that he's choosing to antagonize her is by turning her into an actor.
Yeah.
And being like, well, what's your motivation?
Yeah.
And I thought that was like kind of hip
and
for a movie that has such a strange relationship with the idea of like what a movie is and who these people are.
Well, the two of them are, as characters, I think, are so tired of being on the receiving end of that, which is like part of their frustration at her, that I think it does make sense for them to try to turn it around on her. But I think you're right that the movie itself, it's like that hits, I think, really effectively, particularly because I think we can assume, like everything else, like this was just improvised by the actors.
Right.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right, guys. Do we want to move over to Creep?
Creep on over.
Let's creep on over, man. Yeah.
Before we get too deep into discussing this movie, that's a title that, maybe you've heard somewhere else before.
I can't quite put my finger on it. Where have I heard that before?
Yeah. But we're not talking about a certain Radiohead song, and we're also not talking about other films such as Stalker.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good one.
That's the Andrei Tarkovsky existential drama from
very different.
From 1979. Very, very different in subject matter, although I was thinking about Stalker a little bit watching the Blair Witch Project.
Sure.
Because of the sense of going off a map.
In the woods, yeah.
And although whereas the Blair Witch Project is a scenario of horror, in the case of Stalker, it's more of a scenario for personal reflection.
Yeah.
Yeah, Stalker, not to be confused with Creep or the Blair Witch Project for that matter.
That is true. And although we are told that this is a movie about a man who wants to make a video diary for his future child upon his impending death, this movie is not to be confused with My Life.
Yes.
From 1993.
Name dropped in the film.
Yeah, in the film. So yeah, it's the same kind of thing as the film points out, and this is starring Michael Keaton, which they also point out in the movie. Yeah, don't confuse these two movies.
Yeah, and Nicole Kidman, recently single, apparently.
That is true.
Yeah, totally. And though one of the characters likes to crawl quietly out of frame and then spring into frame rather obnoxiously, Creep is not to be confused with creepy crawlers. Y'all remember creepy crawlers?
Okay, you're going to need to refresh my memory.
Yeah, I'm not sure I do.
This is the Easy Bake Oven for weird boys. It was these little molds and goo that you would pour into the molds.
I'm remembering this.
Yes.
I didn't have these, but yes.
I wanted one really bad, and I asked, and my wonderful parents finally acquiesced, and I had creepy crawlers. But no, this film is not a toy. And these toys were not a film, so do not confuse Creep with creepy crawlers.
So, Emilio, what is this movie Creep about?
Good question, Julian. It's 2012, and we're riding in a car with Aaron, a young man who has answered a want ad on the internet, asking for a videographer to meet them in their mountain home. It's one day's work for $1,000. Maybe it's a lonely woman looking for a strapping young gentleman to come and make her day. One can dream, right? It turns out not to be a woman, but a man named Joseph, who says he has recently been diagnosed with inoperable cancer and has a few months left to live. Joseph would like to leave a document behind for his unborn child so that this unborn child can know who he was when he was alive. And who is Joseph? Well, he's excitable. He's awkward as hell. He's a bit too touchy-feely. He thinks scaring people he's just met is an acceptable form of humor. None of these are particularly great traits. And as day becomes night, Aaron doesn't get many answers as to who Joseph really is. And troubling personal revelations only intensify his unease around Joseph. And when Joseph falls asleep, Aaron opportunistically takes his phone from him. And when it rings, he answers it and discovers that Joseph has been lying to him about his condition and that he, Aaron, might actually be in some danger. And there's more to this movie, but I think leaving it here is a perfectly good place to stop. Who here had seen Creep before? I had not. This is a new one for me.
I had not.
I had not.
Same.
Yeah. Oh, this is
okay,
for all
all
of
right.
us.
Fresh to all four of
cool.
us. Cool.
Yeah.
This is what we call a mise en scene.
That's
Yes.
correct.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing. But I had heard some high praise for it before we decided to cover it in this episode cycle.
I heard almost nothing about this.
Yeah.
So I came in super cold on this one.
Yeah, same.
How about you, Shaun?
I'd heard of the movie. I remember the poster, and I've seen the werewolf image online before. But besides
Fuzz.
that, like I knew really not a lot about it. Definitely my least favorite of the three.
Oh, interesting.
And I think actually exemplifies qualities, for myself at least, of like what maybe isn't as compelling in found footage movies. But also Mark Duplass, I felt, was like a revelation in the film. I was just like, whoa, like it's like you're really seeing him, like he's the driving performance force of the movie, and like he's awesome. Like he does a really, really great job.
Yeah, and he's kind of playing against type, I think, in this.
Definitely.
But you really, really buy that this guy's just a huge fucking creep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah.
Mark Duplass's character, Joseph, his eyes are on the camera in just about every appearance he makes in the movie.
Yeah.
And, you know, going back to this theme of audience interrogation, I mean, how many other movies have that where like one character always has their eyes trained into the lens?
Yeah.
I think, you know, going back to something you said earlier, Shaun, about these movies living or dying on the acting performances, I would agree with you. I think Mark Duplass pretty strong.
Yeah.
Patrick Brice, maybe not
Yeah,
as much.
no.
No.
And he even
He's
kind
not
of
it.
says as much on the commentary.
Yeah, he does.
He's like, I'm a director. I'm not an actor. I think there was a large amount of time between production, between this kind of first act and then when his character is starting to receive the tapes and things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And at that point in the commentary, he's like, well, by now I've learned to act. I'm like, I mean, sure. I don't
a
see
little
that much
better,
of a
yeah.
difference in ability between the beginning and the rest of it, but sure.
Yeah, no.
We mentioned how the Blair Witch Project, I don't know about famously, but notably doesn't really have jump scares. There are a lot of scary things about it, but it does not have like the rhythm of a lot of traditional horror movies. And Creep has quite a few jump scares, although I think the rhythm of them is still a little peculiar within the genre.
It's got a few
mold.
jump scares, but in like the lamest way possible, because it's always just Mark Duplass going to the camera.
That's
and
very
it's
true.
interesting in the call out of it as a device, right?
Yeah.
But I'm just like, it was never scary.
It's funny, like, I agree that I didn't find this movie particularly scary, although I do think I enjoyed it more than you did. But my partner who I watched this one with was like, who we call Dougie on this podcast, he was watching it like through his finger. Like he was
Whoa.
so freaked out by this one. He didn't watch Blair Witch with me because he had seen it before and he was like, no, I'm not doing that.
That one not, no.
Oh, wow.
But Creep actually really got him. And the moment I think most clearly is when Joseph is in the mask in front of the door, kind of blocking his exit.
Oh, yeah,
Which
yeah.
is not so much a jump scare, but just kind of, he's very still. He's moving very slowly. He's like nodding and shaking his head. I found it kind of funny, but Dougie was like, he was really freaked out by that point. And he was also, I think, like, he's going to jump at me. I think he was frustrated because he was constantly like, when is he going to jump at me again?
Yeah.
Well, the moment that really freaked me out in the movie you can call it a jump scare, but it's definitely not of the type that you described, Shaun, where it's just Mark Duplass screaming at the camera. Yeah. The moment that really got me, it comes closer to the end, but it's after Aaron has started receiving these tapes from Joseph after he's tried to get away. And, you know, he's doing a little video diary from bed one night and hears that banging and goes to investigate because he knows it's Joseph. But then that moment when you see him like standing through his doorway, he can't find the source of the banging and he steps away and you see that Joseph is staring through the glass door.
Yeah.
That was the moment that really got me.
That was scary.
And
was creepy.
It's silent too.
Yeah. Cool. So of the films that we're discussing, Creep is the first one that seems to be commenting on the narcissistic thrill of being filmed. Something that I think is very pervasive in our world today, and I think we touched on a little bit earlier when talking Blair Witch. I mean, the act of being filmed and being the one to document, which I think is also kind of interesting. That's the scenario that Joseph uses not only to attract his prey, but also live out his perversion. And I feel like with the growing quality of smartphone cameras, this kind of request quickly became an outdated thing after the early 2010s or so. At least this is my read. So I'm curious to ask you guys, like, do you feel like there's something about the world we live in today that in spite of the access to cameras and editing software would still allow Joseph to keep trapping victims in this way? And I'm also wondering what might he have to do differently to keep this murder spree going?
Yeah, I don't think he has to change anything. He's basically posting online for a freelance gig, which like still exists now. So he's kind of like, you have a camera, come film me. This is a job. It's no different than like a nonprofit hiring a freelancer or something for like a short video gig. And I feel like it'd be able to still use that conceit. But what I think would change it is like this movie's like sort of pre-DSLR revolution, right? So like maybe with that, instead of it being more documentary, it transforms into like, okay, like I'm going to make like a movie. Oh, you have a 5D. Cool. Like bring that over with like a tripod and like, let's like now create like a scene around it because now the documenting part he'd be able to do in some way.
Exactly.
That being said, I think the driver of it is the narcissism.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like you need the person still there and someone's going to take the job.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? You're right. The simple fact that there's an exchange of money tilts things in a way that I hadn't really considered when I posed this.
I think a lot of people do want to get away from the ability to self-document. And that's why like the kind of the rise of like film cameras, like as a hobby, or like, you know, just people being really into vinyl, like things like that. I think people have this nostalgia for. And so I think you could also kind of play it that way where you're like, well, yes, I could do like a video diary for my, you know, future child, but I really like, I want it to be more special than that. So like I want somebody with skills and with like a real camera. And I think you could kind of spin it that direction.
Yeah. And one of my thoughts watching Creep the first time, this doesn't come up in the narrative of the movie, but an important element of the story's genesis is that it was partially inspired by experiences, at least that Mark Duplass had, maybe Patrick Brice as well, involving Craigslist. And that it's like, I mean, it's not mentioned by name in the movie, but it's not hard to guess that.
It makes me think of the Craigslist, like D-Men and Problemista.
Oh, yes. Craigslist. Nice. And that comes 10 years later and is a much more stylized movie, you know, to show the signs of the times. But speaking of signs of the times, I mean, one of the thoughts that I had watching Creep the first time was that this movie is very much of the Nathan Fielder era.
Oh, yes.
Whether you've seen Nathan For You or not, I don't think it's really spoiling anything to say that he, like a lot of the events orchestrated for that show involved Craigslist, of just soliciting people, drawing people into his orbit who were like truly desperate, desperate regular people.
We're probably directly referencing this, but I want to be more explicit. So Nathan For You, the show, had this episode where he was making, I think it was pets. It's been a while since I've seen this episode, but I think it was like after a pet dies, there was this service that he was trying to come up with on the show where you would create like a video for your child of the pet being like hey buddy, I'm sorry I died, like to help the kid like cope with the fact that the pet is dead. And that is exactly what I was thinking of with the conceit of what Joseph is doing. It's basically like, sorry I died, buddy. Like that, I thought directly about Nathan Fielder and Nathan For You during that moment.
Yeah. And this movie comes out like around when Nathan For You is a new show too.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't surprise me if there was some awareness of it, but I think it's just some great universal synchronicity going on right there too.
Totally.
I love that. I'm just curious, did the ending work for you guys?
Yeah, I think it was a pretty fitting button to put on the story. Just unsettling, I thought.
Yeah. Shaun, how about you? You took a big deep breath there.
I think I don't know. I feel very torn with like aspects of the movie. Like I think it does work, but it feels cute. You know, it feels like it's not like, I don't know. It's a kind of ending that like leaves me feeling a little cheated because the movie wasn't like something more than what it was in some way, right? Like, and then it would get to these interesting ideas, but then it wasn't really an exploration of any of those interesting ideas. So it kind of has like one of those like gotcha cute twist sort of endings, which is like mildly satisfying, I think, but then again, like I think the way it was executed was interesting, right? Like seeing in the long shot and then seeing him approach with the axe, and they didn't pull the punches. Like I was like, oh, this movie's going to cut away before that violence. It's like, no, they actually show the axe going in. I was like, okay, cool. Like the movie showed a kill, right? Like that's great. And then the reveal with him, like then looking at that footage and then twisting the camera back to him, and then I love that his own jump scare in the video scared him. I don't know. So it's like it is satisfying, but it's also annoying is how I feel about the ending.
Yeah, I mean, I like the ending, but they did film several different endings. And I think that you can kind of tell because I think the movie is designed in a way that any of these endings could work. And maybe that means that the one we actually get doesn't hold up as solidly as if that was the one they had in mind throughout the
originally.
whole film.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in a really similar place to you, Shaun. It kind of worked on me, but then looking back on it, there are some things that I thought it did fine, but I think to your point, it could have been a little bit more adventurous, I think, in some of the areas that it went. And that it kind of flashed for you. But it's funny, at the end, I was like, oh, I guess that was kind of good. So I don't know. I'm a little torn about this one, actually. I feel a little more strongly about the other two.
Yeah.
There are some great scenes in the movie, like when the camera goes black and he's sharing that story about the experience with his wife. And it's like, whoa, it's like kind of, it's like hard to hear. And it's like really harrowing. And the fact that like we just had to listen to it is a really cool, powerful choice.
The one scene that I thought was really interesting, I wish they'd done more with, was the scene right before it when he talks about giving him money and that he's like looks for it in his shoe. There was something about that I thought was actually really compelling. And then it kind of diverted, and I don't know. I kind of wish that they had explored that a little more.
Yeah. But
one moment of beauty that, and like this is one of the, like watching it in the context of found footage, made it really stand out for me, is like the reveal of the heart shaped hole at the like ravine or whatever, like near the waterfall. Like it's like, oh, that's what found footage is all about, right? It's a discovery, and it's the moment of discovery, and we're discovering it at the same time the characters are discovering it, and then it's this beautiful poetic moment, and it's a thing that exists in reality that they either knew that existed over there and they kind of built their film around this location and that like motif, or they discovered it and they're like, yo, like check that out, like, okay, like next scene, this is what we do, like we reveal the rock, right?
I like that.
That's a really cool thing. It's like when you see it, it's like it really feels like that moment where everyone discovers something.
In the commentary they say that it was the waitress at the diner that they go to. In the film it's after, but when they actually went to that diner, they were asking the waitress, like, hey, are there any kind of like cool landmarks in the area, like anything we should visit? And she was like, well, do you know about the Heart Rock? So that's kind of how they end up
That's
there. I really like that it was just like a local being like, yeah, we've like got
that's
this
awesome.
cool place.
Speaking
That's
to
really
exactly what you said, discovery,
Yeah.
Shaun, I love that. Are there any small little moments from this movie or little details that you want to shout out, Shaun?
I talked about the blackout, talked about Mark Duplass, the kill being cool. Yes, the little moment, the end credits music. Like to hear like a metal song,
Totally.
like at the end of that, like I was like, okay, yeah, very cool outro track that feels heavy. That's a little bit in contrast with what we've seen, but maybe not tonally. And the song is cool, so I was like, okay, like I'm always impressed by like good song cues and like good soundtrack choices, which Searching does not have,
Yeah,
and
that's true.
Creed did, and I was very happy with the end credits.
It's
music.
like it's a metal cover of the Peach Fuzz song. I think.
I think it is.
Oh, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which I didn't really clock, and then they mentioned on the
Yeah.
commentary, and I was like, "Oh, duh!" But I think it's so well produced
Yeah.
that you don't really think about it in that
Totally.
way.
And
That's cool.
a friend was telling me that a lot of, if not all of the movie's budget went to licensing that song, where so much of it was
That
so
tracks.
easy to film.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I love that.
Another thing here that I think for the context of this discussion, or for the purpose of this discussion, is an interesting thing to mention is that there's one point where Patrick Brice and Mark Duplass mention the term found footage in the commentary, and they seem to have like a little bit of, I don't know if it's full on negative, but they didn't seem to have the most favorable association with the term. And I think
okay.
that their preferred term was point of view films.
Oh,
Yeah, I heard that as well.
Yeah, which is an interesting spin. And I don't personally object to the term found footage, but I do understand where they're coming from there, because it's, well, in the sense that if you think about where this whole story resolves, it's not that Joseph has found the footage. It's more that he's stolen it.
manipulated
Yeah.
footage. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah. And then point of view, I think, does get a little more generally to the scope of this movie. And so, yeah, I mean, they may have an issue with someone calling it found footage. I don't personally, but I do like the idea of potentially reimagining the style as point of view films.
Sure.
Yeah.
I like that.
And then, you'd have to separate that from movies like Nickel Boys or Hardcore Henry that are shot in the first person.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So maybe there's a little more,
There's a qualifier that's missing.
Yeah, there are more lines to be drawn there, but still, food for thought.
Cool.
Totally.
I like that. All right, guys, what do you say? We move on to Searching?
Yes.
Yes.
And Searching, I should say, should not be confused with the film The Missing, which is a film from 2003. You guys familiar with this film?
No.
This is a somewhat forgotten film from Ron Howard. It stars Tommy Lee Jones and Cate Blanchett. It's like this horror, thriller, kind of westerny type film. It's really good. This came out. This is a video store movie in that zone.
Cool.
I would recommend it. Although I haven't seen it since it came out. But yes, not to be confused with Searching.
Yes, and neither of the two films you just mentioned should be confused with the 1982 film also titled Missing. This is a movie directed by Costa Gavras. It is a biographical thriller historical drama starring Jack Lemmon as a father who searches for his son who has gone missing in 1970s Santiago, Chile. It's a very good movie. I saw it at the Film Forum earlier this year when they were doing a series of Jack Lemmon films to celebrate his centennial. Also showed things like The Apartment and the vastly underrated Bell, Book and Candle.
I love that movie.
I love that movie.
Dude, that movie is James Stewart, Kim Novak, and he's hilarious in that movie.
Yeah,
He's very good.
Without saying exactly what, there's an episode we're going to do in a few months where I have a point related to that movie that I'm going to bring up.
I can't wait.
Cool.
But yes,
great film.
Yes, Missing 1982, not to be confused with any other film with missing in the title, nor with Searching.
Nor Searching. That's correct. And Searching is also not to be confused with the search for Santa Paws. I was hoping for that reaction, which is part of the Buddies verse.
Yes.
Which I know you're a big fan of.
Yeah,
It's kind of like Elf with puppy.
Yes.
Kind of.
Well, I love it. Well done, Madeline. 10
Thank
out of 10. What's searching
What is
about?
it?
Yeah, we've talked about what it isn't, but what is searching about?
Well, in a true evolution of the found footage genre, our final film tonight puts a new spin on the medium. Rather than viewing the story through a traditional camera lens, this film introduces technology, namely computers, iPhones, FaceTime, live streaming, security cameras, and more. Through these new lenses, we meet David, played by John Cho, and his teenage daughter, Margot, played by Michelle Law, 2 years after Margot's mother tragically passes away from lymphoma. When David wakes one day and is unable to contact Margot, his failed attempts to locate her begin to reveal to him that the two of them may have grown apart since tragedy struck their family. When his most promising lead to locate her turns out to be a dead end, David finally turns to the police, and he soon meets Detective Rosemary Vick, played by Deborah Messing. And although they collaborate in the investigation at first, David's desperate methods to find his daughter break apart his investigation from that of the police. David digs further into Margot's online persona, and along with findings from Detective Vick, is presented with the possibility that perhaps Margot doesn't want to be found. However, David's conviction never falters, and his determination will continue to lead him closer and closer to a possible reunion with Margot.
That sounds like the movie I saw.
Totally.
Yep.
Thank you.
Who here had seen Searching before this conversation?
I had seen it. I don't really remember in what context. I think Dougie and I just watched it maybe the year after it came out. I don't think I saw it in theaters, but I had seen it before.
I rented it from the library about 2 years ago and didn't get around to it until we did this. I was like, oh, this looks interesting. And then I never got around to it. So, but it was on my mind to see it. But,
yeah.
How about you, Julian?
I had not seen it before, but I was aware of it since the time when it came out. I remember seeing the trailer for the movie in the summer of 2018 when it was released. And it was apparent from the trailer, that this movie's doing something interesting formally. That it was very clear that it was going to entirely take place on things you can see on a computer screen. I think the movie definitely lingered in my mind after even just seeing the trailer. It was not one of those trailers that just comes and goes. I think it had stood out to me as there's something interesting with the medium going on here. But now I've finally seen it in prep for this discussion, and there is something interesting with the medium going on there.
Totally. Yeah. Shaun, how about you?
I saw it on a plane.
Oh,
so this was a plane watch for me.
Ooh.
And I also had been familiar with the trailer, and it's okay, this movie could be interesting in a conceptual way. And it's an incredibly well executed movie. I remember this is early Letterboxd, or I think I have my I should go back and take a look, but I have my Letterboxd review of when I first saw it. And I was really into it, and I'm still into it, even though I have some major issues with it, which maybe are also part of the feature of the movie, and we could kind of get into that. But my first time watching it was on a plane, and then this is my second time watching it.
I feel like seeing it on a plane adds this whole other layer, just because that's also kind of a unique type of screen to watch a movie on.
Yeah. The last time it felt this fitting to watch a movie on the computer at 2 a.m. was We're All Going to the World's Fair,
which we also considered for this conversation.
Yes.
Ooh, that'd be cool.
Yeah, that's the I think not the very first, but the breakthrough feature of James Schoenbrunn, who went on to direct I Saw the TV Glow,
which we all saw and spoke about.
Brilliant movie.
Yeah.
One of my favorites of last year.
Yeah.
Mine too. World's Fair is a great movie as well too. Got to give a lot of props to that. But Searching.
Damn, I wish one of us got a chance to see Searching in the theaters, because now I'm curious. It's there's the phone experience, there's the computer experience. I watched it on a TV as well, but what does it mean for quotidian images of our regular everyday screens to exist on a big screen, right?
Totally.
Once you make it big, none of us had that opportunity, and I bet you if we were to see that in its premiere weekend or see it in theaters, it would totally, or if there's a revival of the film at Metrograph or something, it's going to hit different, seeing this stuff
seeing
in a cinematic
computer screen that kind of size seems kind of very disconcerting, very eerie.
Totally.
Yeah. And I think it fits really nicely into the whole conceit that is uniting all the movies that we're talking about in our cycle. The audience interrogation. I mean, one of the things that immediately jumped out to me, I don't know how you guys felt about this. The first 5 minutes of this movie was straight up up.
Oh yeah, okay. So
Straight up.
100%.
straight up. On the commentary, they called it "Up meets a Google commercial,"
Exactly.
which I think
Yeah.
is a very on point description.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
And even
100%.
way before I even heard that, I was already thinking, oh, it's up.
Yeah. Before
Yeah.
hearing the commentary, I think we all thought that.
But
it's
it was
really, it's so well executed.
It is.
And then it has that fucking music in it that drives me crazy.
Yeah.
It's like, it feels just like very standard score stuff, like very standard Hollywood type score stuff, but
Yeah.
it's also effective. Like once like they move the mom's photo to the in loving memory
Yes.
like
Totally.
template, and then you hear like the music cue shift or like it hits a certain note, like I started crying, right? Like
Yeah.
it is
Totally.
manipulative, and it's manipulative music to underscore the emotion, but it does work, and they are using all their tools really, really well.
One of the things that the director Aneesh Chaganty said, he worked at Google for a number of years. He was intimately aware of how we keep track of things on our devices and our computers and how much emotion actually goes behind so many of the decisions that we trust with our technology.
Yeah.
And it is so apparent when you watch this movie. And it was funny. I felt like I was being implicated in some ways.
Yeah.
Like it's seeing how much these little drags of the mouse and the clicks and pop-up windows and calendar appointments moving around, it's such a part of our lives that we're able to literally imprint emotion through it. It was very effective. I really like that.
I mean, I said I never watch things on like computers or phone screens, but I did just to try to get the commentary in. I did like watch part of this on my phone, like with the commentary version, like on the train. And then like having to like, I got like a text from our boss. And so I'm like flipping over to my text messages and I'm kind of just thinking about the way, and I get here and I go to my computer and I'm just thinking like coming fresh off of watching a scene from that movie, then flipping over to like texting or doing other things and going to your computer. It just makes you think about the way you're using technology in a completely different way, in like a way that was very like eerie to me.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, off that, like I watched it when I came home from work today. So I put it on at like 6 o'clock. But this morning I had the audio playing while I was driving to work. I have like a 1 hour drive to the Bronx. And I was curious, like, is this movie, because it's so much like you're going to hear the audio, right? Like, is it going to function like a podcast? Like, and then I was wondering, like, okay, is this movie inherently cinematic, or are they just going to like all information, everything you want to get is going to come through audio? But then like in watching the movie again, it's like, no, it really plays against both those things, right? Like there's the things he's saying in contrast to the things that he's viewing. There's like a great moment. I think it's when he's talking to the piano teacher.
Yeah.
And then like, he's like, oh yeah, no. Like, I know. Oh, okay. Yeah. Maybe she just didn't call me, whatever. We hear him justifying certain things versus whatever he's happening to look at on the screen at that moment in time.
Totally.
It's like, oh, that's cinema right there. Right. Like that's
definitely.
sound plus image creating a brand new idea.
Yeah. This
I
is going to sound like a really dark comparison, but a lot of those moments in Searching made me think of the scene in Aliens where Ripley and, Newt are like, they're under attack and they're trying to get help on the camera. And then what is the Paul Reiser character's name?
Oh, got Burke.
Burke. Yeah. He sees them on the monitor and just turns it off.
Yeah.
It's there. And that's the opposite of what happens in Searching, but it's, the tension, sometimes the irony, or maybe really the connectivity to put it appropriately between what a person's action is and how that reflects on the piece of technology they're using. It's a constant throughout this movie. And I was kind of amazed at how much, a simple move of the mouse or a closing of a window could say about character. And that's, going back to this idea of audience interrogation, that's where it really felt up close and personal. Yeah,
the tracking of the mouse it has a lot of emotion imbued into it, which is so weird to say, but it is true.
Yeah.
It's so true, because it's timing. It's we're processing reaction, and then we see the mouse slowly click to something and click the X, right?
Yeah.
I've also never seen, my cat has been compelled by the TV 3 times in its life.
Hmm.
The Zamboni during the Olympics, Flow,
Yes,
and
that
this
makes sense.
movie, when it was like the scene where it was like really mouse click heavy, and my cat was just so transfixed because it's just looking at that thing, and it's like, whoa, just like all of us, right?
Yeah.
It's like we want to see where this thing is gonna go, and like what is he gonna click, and what is he gonna do? There's also just like, man, this movie, to make it, is such a feat because the amount of organization and prep you need to do for all the materials that need to play out in the course of the screen recorded take is like mind boggling. But then their framing of it, like there's the great moment where like once they had the suicide, right? The guy that's like that did the video and said he and then committed like his image is still on the screen, and you see it in the sliver of the screen, and it's like, oh whoa, it was like kind of harrowing, right? Like the person that at that point he maybe believes killed his daughter is still on the screen, and then when it pays off with the photo of
later,
the detective,
Yeah.
and then we see it right there. It's like the planting and payoff in this movie is really, really well executed. Of like the fins and like all this stuff. Anything that's dropped does pay off in the end.
Yeah, and something they talk about in the commentary is a lot of what you see on the screen, they have to build pretty much from scratch. Like some of these websites, yes, are real, like Google exists or whatever, but like
but then UCast
is it's based on you now, but it's different. So a lot of time, and like all the emojis they're having to custom design because it's like they're not able to just like license that Apple emojis or whatever. So much of it they have to actually design. Like I think they said that they filmed scenes where we see actual people in like a couple of weeks. I think like 14 days. Well, and then they spend like a year and a half like editing and doing the rest of this stuff.
Right. Yeah. And then in preparation, I think the director and the producer or something, they filmed the whole movie themselves.
Yeah, the director and the co-screenwriter.
Thank you, the co-screenwriter. Yeah, like they did it in a way to kind of like frame the film for everybody else. Yeah. But like the level of world building that went into this movie, it's so wild because it's so tech-based, but it's really grounded in this mystery, one thing kind of leading to another. I think just really effectively. I was very impressed by this movie.
Good plot development.
Totally. I mean, we're already kind of getting into this, but I just want to quickly pose to see if there's anything else we want to add. Like, was there a particular moment that stood out to any of you when it comes to the way that the technology is utilized in this?
Well, I think a broader aspect of the movie that, and to situate it in this context of found footage, that, it's like I was kind of like, I was wrestling a little bit in my mind watching it. It's like, okay, well, the format here is different. Yes, it's working with ostensibly scenes of ordinary life on camera, but can you call it found footage? And then I had a eureka moment watching it of like, this movie is the act of finding footage.
Yeah.
It represents it in real time. Or if not in real time, just, the real act of doing it. And I think like something, this is maybe not one moment, but an aspect of the movie that I was thinking of a lot in that vein was the fact that, so in the prior two movies we discussed, you have camera movement constantly, but it's all in the scene. And then, in a number of points in searching, you have footage being shown where there's something that on the commentary that it was either Aneesh Chaganty, the director, or his co-writer, Sev Ohanian, who said it, that it's like, this movie doesn't have coverage in the conventional sense. Although, yes, those scenes are filmed with static cameras in one place for the most part, but you have all these moments in the assemblage of what you see on screen where there is something more selective going on.
Yep.
Yeah, they're using visual storytelling in such a good way where like they're engineering close-ups from all this stuff. There's a moment where they like reveal like a certain like text bubble or something, and they do like an almost handheld camera sort of like, because they're doing something called keyframing to like track from like across the screen, and there's like almost like a handheld moment. So they're really finding ways to like make it as cinematic as possible, using the grammar of cinema, using reverse shot in clever ways where like the stuff is on the screen, but because his iMessage or FaceTime is inactive, we're just seeing like what the camera's recording, which is how we get those moments of like him making phone calls to the detective or walking around the room. And then it's like they find even clever ways to like use lighting, right? Where after he has the fight in the movie theater and we see him in the room, like the lighting
yeah,
is
to
like
reveal.
he
Yeah.
looks fucked up.
Yeah.
Like
He is fucked up,
haggard.
and it looks right. Like they're making sure, like, okay, like this needs to feel different than the other times we've seen this same space before. So they
like
just
that, yeah.
really
Mhm.
thought through like everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To get to that question, I think one of the big reveals in the movie is the avatar.
Yeah.
And I thought that was something that was really effective too, because how many times have we looked at someone's avatar and tried to make inferences about them?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because I agree with you, Shaun, that some of the music was a little on the nose, but I think that moment was actually pretty nice. Like sound
that's
and
cool.
sight, like you kind of feel it closing in, and like the dread of being like, oh my God, this is not who we thought it was.
Yeah.
And I thought that was
Yeah.
pretty good.
Although
That was cool.
for what my perspective as an audience member is worth, even before that reveal happens, like still the first time I saw that image, I could kind of tell you this is a stock photo.
I'm like, this is a stock photo, but do you clock it as like, and that is important, and like that is something I
Right.
want to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
I don't remember I don't remember how much I could tell. I'm rewatching this like you, Shaun. So it's like I know what's coming. I can't remember how much I could kind of figure out on my first watch.
Is it too on the nose that the name of that handle was Fish and Chips? You know, it's like the minute you see that, it's like, oh, okay, cool. Like they're making the connection to it
catfish.
being fishing. So like that was
Yeah.
the first thing I saw. I was like, okay, cool. Like that's a possible reveal. You know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Can I just say really quick? We were talking a little bit earlier about acting. I hate to say this, but I think one of the weak points of this film was the Deborah Messing character.
Yes.
Yeah. I would agree.
Because
with that.
I like her in a lot of other things, but there was something about how flat she was just across the board that when we find out that it's actually her, there's very little in the performance. I think to go back to on a rewatch, you guys tell me you guys rewatched it. Is there anything that you go back to in her performance and go, there was that? I feel like it's not a performance that really on a second watch like reveals more.
No, yeah, I'd say you're right. I don't think the only thing I can think of is that this character, Rosemary Vick, she feels like she has to be so measured that's why it comes off as flat. Like maybe that was Deborah Messing's like character choice of being like, well, she has all of these conversations she's kind of rehearsed and prepared for because she doesn't want to say anything wrong. And so that's why it's coming across as like very matter of fact, very like I'm here to do my job. But I would agree that I think that on my first watch, I would agree with you that means I just don't feel any connection with this character whatsoever.
Right. And the ultimate reveal of the film, I think, would land better if it was a more dynamic performance.
Yep.
If we could read more layers into it.
I wonder too, it's just like it's such a plot heavy movie,
Yeah.
right? And I actually think found footage movies function best when there is a strong plot, right? Because it's like we need something to keep us sort of going through. And I think Blair Witch does like a pretty good job of that. And I think Searching is like heavily plotted to the point where there's no breathing room, right?
Yeah.
Like there's no opportunity for sort of life to just kind of exist in this sort of nervous, fragile, manic state. And so it's just like the minute one thing happens, then there's a new reveal, and there's a new reveal, and it just like kind of keeps going in that way. And so it's like, was there ever even going to be an opportunity for there to be like a sort of personal moment with like Deborah Messing and like John Cho, where it's like, no, like I hear you and I understand, and like this, I don't know, it's just like something that's a quieter moment that's not just like moving the plot.
I think the closest you get to that is when she's telling him about her son kind of running a neighborhood scam. And I think that on the commentary they were trying to say like, oh well, this is her moment of this is a true story that she's telling him. And it's like maybe the first time she's telling him anything truthful, because she does feel for him as a parent. even though she's covering her tracks and her own son's tracks.
Right. Yeah. I was actually going to single out that moment for a counter argument to say, like, yes, I think there is something to work with there. I think the flatness of her demeanor, I thought it made a lot of sense in the story, because of the composure her character is trying to take to cover her tracks. But also because, we have to remember, like, yes, this all takes place on a screen, but this is the screen experience of one person, of John Cho's main character, David Kim. And that it's, and that I found, compelling too. The first scene where he goes back onto his deceased wife's former laptop, I was a little confused because I thought, like, is this a different character doing that? But over time I put the pieces together. I thought, like, is this Margot going on the computer? Margot is the daughter who's gone missing. But that was just before I really, I'd put all the pieces together of the narrative and realized, no, it's David going on a different computer. But that's, an important element of perspective to consider here too, so that we are seeing what David sees when it comes to this experience, the experience of all the characters, particularly Rosemary, the detective. And so I thought that, like, Deborah Messing is putting on a performance, and so is the character. Yeah. So it kind of made sense to me that, if there's not that much other than the plot to work with there, that's kind of the natural way that this registers.
Yeah. You describing that, I think, is also making me think that some people are just not good on webcams.
Yeah.
And I think maybe there's a little bit of that happening.
Particularly in a pre-Zoom era.
Right, yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. Where it's like, you haven't done too many video calls. And
I wonder if, like, Deborah Messing watching this, like, post-COVID is like, oh, I would fucking kill it now. Give me another shot at searching.
Let me into Missing too.
Yeah.
I like that.
Because there was a spiritual sequel to this movie called Missing.
And I did not see that
I don't think any of us have seen that one. No.
I'm certainly curious to.
I may watch it. I think it's not supposed to be as good, and I don't think the two filmmakers from this film are really that heavily involved outside of producing. So we'll see. Cool. Do you have any, like, final shout outs before you before you need to head off?
Well, a tech moment in searching, my favorite tech moment is the Norton antivirus.
Yeah. And it's also, like, kind of heartbreaking because it's like it's been 600 days.
694 days or something like that since the last update, which is, like, it's such an effective use of, like, a little thing that we're all familiar with, but we know what it means in the context of the movie, and it's so heartbreaking.
Dude, right on, man.
Another heartbreaking tech moment, you have, like, there's the one video that he is, like, hide from search results. Which they say on the commentary, they're like, that's actually not, like, a menu item on Macs. We had to, like, create that. Yeah. But it's so that at the end, when he deletes like a video, I think the Father's Day video, so that's like moved to trash and then empty trash, it hits a little harder because in this world he has the option to just hide from search results, but that one he actually deletes, and I think those two work really well together.
That's great.
It makes me think as well of all the moments when we've talked about, like, mouse drags and things like that. Also, I have to point out there was a moment earlier, Shaun, when you were talking about your cat reacting to what's on a screen, and you said your cat was reacting to the mouse.
I was waiting for someone to say that.
Whoa.
I was gonna bring it up, and then I was like, "That's okay. Yes. We'll move on."
Is your cat named Jerry, perchance?
My cat is named Special Agent Dale Cooper.
And we're big fans of that.
Yeah.
And my other cat is named Dougie Jones. So we got two Dougies.
Love that.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's even better than I was.
You are
in
good company.
Yeah. Beautiful. But all, like, in addition to, these moments of cat and mouse that happen in the movie, that also, like, the scenes of typing, of, like, the messages that David writes and then erases before he edits them.
Sad.
They're sad, but that's another one of those, like, scarily relatable moments.
Totally.
There was one that kind of made me chuckle and implicated me a little bit, which is the conversation he has with the piano teacher. And he's like, is she there with you? And she's like, no, does she want to come back for lessons?
Oh yes. I clocked the prices on her flyer.
Exactly,
Also,
yeah,
she charges more than we do.
That's true. It was one of those little moments where I was like, oh yeah, as like a teacher, your brain is never too far from that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I'll also just have to praise this movie for being sympathetic to both Mac and Windows users.
That's true. You get a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah.
The one important figure in the making of Searching who we have not mentioned yet is one of its producers, whose name is Timur Bekmambetov.
Don't know this
He
guy.
seems to be one of these people who has his name behind a lot of really successful movies, but he's maybe not the first person you would think of in association with them. He directed the movie Wanted with Angelina Jolie.
Oh.
But he's also known for producing a number of other so-called screen life movies. Searching is one of them, but Unfriended is another.
Oh.
Other screen life films include Profile from 2018, and then, well, we mentioned it a bit before we went on mics, the latest War of the Worlds.
Oh, yes.
That has come out this year, stars Ice Cube, and from what I understand is maybe the latest So Bad It's Good movie.
The one other detail I want to point out is that you guys know the hidden second story in this movie is the alien invasion.
Yeah, I read that on the Wikipedia.
Wait, what?
So it's really easy to miss, but they talk about it a little bit in the commentary that a lot of times when you're on news sites in this movie, there are headlines about how there's like kind of an active alien invasion.
I remember this now. Yeah.
That there's like meetings, like NASA has meetings with like the Department of Defense.
Okay,
and, like this is happening on a lot of the news websites and like on the bottom chyrons on like the newsreels. And I think they were kind of like, we could put, much like with Creep, we could do a lot of different endings with this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And one I think that they did kind of consider was like, it's aliens.
She's been abducted by aliens.
She's been abducted by aliens.
Wow.
And so they're kind of planting those seeds throughout the film that are really easy to miss, that it could be aliens.
See, I didn't listen to the commentary, and it's funny. I hear that. That's a credit, I think, to how much our eye is drawn to throughout the film.
Yeah.
And how good they are at tracking our eye.
Exactly.
That they can plant something like that off to the side, but if the mouse is elsewhere, then you're not really paying attention.
Yeah.
God damn. See, I mean, the director, he worked for Google for a number of years, using all of that stuff against us or in our favor.
Yeah.
Another thing I thought about was Heathers with this movie, because when it's revealed that like, oh well, she's like missing, like she didn't run away. Then you get like all the kids from school who are like her like biology study group girl, being like filming the video of herself crying. You see all these other kids like being interviewed on the news or posting on her Facebook page, even though like it's been confirmed for us that she didn't really have a close friend group
of good friends. Yeah.
And so all of these kids, it's a lot like in Heathers.
Coming out of the woodwork. I love that.
Where they're suddenly like, oh, well, this is my chance for the spotlight to like fake compassion for this person I barely knew.
Yeah. And I think going back to, I think something that we've touched on a little bit, which is these films and the found footage format, I think is a great way to interrogate the performative nature of people and non-actors in front of cameras.
And this film does that also with social media. Like this is the only one of the three that really gets into social media.
Yep.
Yeah.
My final thought, because this is something I was thinking a lot about, like watching Searching again, is the idea of manipulation and like manipulation as a filmmaker. And, we're experiencing David discovering everything in almost real time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But also, unlike Blair Witch and unlike Creep, the level of plotting over here kind of betrays a little bit of that discovery, because we know it's all being plotted to be twisted later or to be flipped or to plant something and to pay off in a way that sometimes made it feel a little bit cheap for me, but it also is what makes it effective. And I think that's what I feel a little bit torn about with the film. It's like you see the levels of like plot writing manipulation that's happening, but also the movie is good because of that, and an effective thriller because of that. So I don't know. It's like, this is my sort of relationship with plot sometimes, where it's like, damn, it's like it's working, but it's annoying in the way that it's working. But it's that way for a reason, to elicit the reaction that it is eliciting from us.
Yeah,
Totally. Yeah.
I appreciate that you said that, Shaun, because I was thinking about that a lot watching this movie too. That, like, you know, in the sense of being, you know, of being depicted the way it is, taking place in the format that it does, it really is a pioneering movie. But in a different sense, in more of the sense of plot, as compared to the other movies we're discussing, and in the greater zeitgeist, it's much more conventional.
It is very,
Totally.
Even in
some
the
ways,
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
But even in the way that, you know, there's that kind of, I don't mean this as a lull in quality, but a lull in the mystery, the way you have in other things like Knives Out or LA Confidential, that moment in the movie where you think, oh, is it solved now? When it's clearly not, because you're only halfway through. But like, but yeah, it's interesting to see, you know, especially as we trace the evolution of found footage as a style in this episode, that, and in general, that, like, you know, the movie that codified the genre, Blair Witch Project, is something that notably has some breaks from convention in terms of its rhythm. And then, you know, you can see the style as it gets more popular develop into something that registers more conventionally too.
Right. It's trying to tell the more conventional stories in ways that are incorporating these other technologies that are just so much a part of our lives now, that it's like, it almost feels uncanny to see these kinds of stories told through them. Yeah. Big time. Shaun, this has been so awesome.
Yeah, thank
you.
you.
So fun.
Thank you so much,
thank you,
man.
guys.
I really can't say that enough. Where can people find you? You've got this movie, I know, that has been your baby, and it's out in the world, but like, yeah, do you want to tell people more about like where they can find you and see your work?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, the Brown Shaun, Shaun. That's my internet handle on all things. And Ben and Suzanne, a reunion in 4 parts, will be streaming on Fandor and rentable in lots of other places, and pretty accessible. And I just want to give a shout out. One, thank you guys for having me on the show. This is super fun talking about all these movies. And I want to give a shout out and a recommendation to one of the most interesting found footage movies that I'd seen. And it's called The Code. And it came out last year. And it's one of those movies, like, I saw it, it was like, this is what like pushing the medium forward is all about. And you get this like confluence of screens. So it's like a COVID, or it's like takes place during COVID. And the premise is a couple that's quarantining together. And then one of them, played by Dasha from Red Scare podcast, decides to start filming their relationship. And then the boyfriend, played by Peter Vack, is like, well, I'm also going to start filming because I don't want to be canceled based off of what you're filming. And it's just like, such a crazy level. And there's like one point where there's 16 different screens. Like they're using like the backup car camera screen. They're using security. They're using every possible screen. It's like, this is the most like 2025 movie I've seen, where it's like, okay, yeah, this is our relationship with screens now. So that would be my recommendation. If you enjoyed this episode, hearing about all these found footage movies, and you want to see something that takes it to a new place, The Code is the movie to check out.
I'm so excited to check this out.
Yeah. Thank you for the rec.
It's so good. It's really funny too.
Yeah. I'm also just I'm self-conscious of the fact that I said thank you for the rec, because REC. Recording.
Yep. I caught that too. Wonderful. Shaun, thank you very much, man.
Sure. Thank you.
Awesome. Guys, we have discussed these 3 movies. Let's get into some Unlikely Shared Universe. What do you say?
Okay, cool. Does anyone want to go first?
I can start because I didn't really write mine. I'm just like kind of doing a quick one off the cuff.
Sure.
So I just think that after everything that John Cho David has been through in searching, I think it's probably time for him to get back out there in the dating scene. So perhaps he, meets a nice lady, and maybe they get married, and perhaps she has children from before she met him. So he becomes a stepdad as Margot goes off to college. And he's really excited to step up into this role. But his fear of what happened with Margot will never quite leave him. And so when he has the opportunity to incorporate AI into his physical home,
Oh, yeah.
he definitely jumps on that. Now, I haven't seen this movie.
Neither have I, and I can't remember the name of it.
It's
but yes.
called Afraid. But
Afraid,
it's
okay.
like AI in the middle. Afraid.
AI.
Again, I can't go any further because I haven't seen it, but I feel like these are, they're in a similar realm. And I do think that the PTSD of not being able to locate your child would possibly drive somebody to this kind of like permanent surveillance.
Yeah, sure. Helicopter parent. Yeah.
Well, I don't think I know this movie. Interesting.
Came out like last year.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's. I remember reading about it a little bit.
I think I saw the trailer at one point. I don't know that it's supposed to be any good. I mean, it's like there was this Disney Channel original movie in like either the late 90s or the early 2000s called Smart House. And it's like, I saw the trailer for Afraid and I was like, it's Smart House. Where it's like, oh, you have a smart house, but like
it's going to go bad.
The AI that runs your smart house is like evil.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Not to
be confused with Demon Seed.
Exactly.
Not to be confused with AI, artificial intelligence.
That's true.
Yeah.
Although that's not really about a house so much as about a boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with Monster House.
Okay. Yeah, for sure.
Or House.
Or that's right. House MD. Yeah.
Well, I meant House, the movie that I gave you.
That too. Yes. I'm sorry. Yes. There we go. Boy, lots of layers here.
Anyway, that's my quick one.
Cool. Well, do we want a John Cho is the bread of our Unlikely Shared Universe sandwich?
I honestly think you should go next.
Okay, fantastic. Oh, I think you're really excited to tell this one. All right, cool.
Yeah.
I'm excited to tell this one too. All right, so this is going to be a cho and something after type of meal. When we meet David Kim, we see that he is the dad to a high school age daughter named Margot and a widower, having somewhat recently lost his wife Pam to cancer. On top of all the usual survivor's guilt, there is an added layer of grief that David is feeling because David is actually extremely lucky to be alive himself. You see, David, he didn't always go by his current name. He grew up with the given name Steve Cho. He was a smart and talented high schooler in the Orange County area who seemingly had it all. He was affluent, a straight-A student, he had a motorcycle, he lived in a beautiful house. But Steve found that his parents were quite detached from him. And with that prefrontal cortex not fully developed and his hormones raging, he made a rash and very dangerous choice. He decided that he wanted to, quote, teach them a lesson and hire a few fellow teenagers from a neighboring high school, Derek, Ben, Virgil, and Han, to help him stage a break-in. Perhaps losing some of the material belongings that they'd put so much stock in would wake his folks up and make them realize that there were other important things in life, like caring more about their son, right? It turns out that the quartet of young men that he hires decide that they want to teach Steve a lesson. They think he's smug and entitled. He's cheating on his girlfriend, Stephanie, whom Ben not so secretly desires. And when they stage this break-in and it goes very wrong, let's just say Steve is very lucky to still be alive through the ordeal that he goes through and very lucky to make a full recovery and go on to live a pretty normal life, have a career, start a family, all that stuff. So when his daughter goes missing after saying that she'd been going to a study group, it's not just his dad instincts that are kicking in. It's the added lived-in experience of knowing just how shitty young men and women can be, and is desperate to know that a similar fate to the one that he survived has not befallen Margot.
I don't think I know this movie.
Same.
But it sounds very interesting.
Yeah. I've talked to you guys about this movie. I don't think I've talked about it on mic. This is Better Luck Tomorrow.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, you mentioned this.
Yeah, this is Justin Lin's directorial debut from 2002. I love this movie.
This sounds so interesting.
Yeah.
This is a movie that I would, at the drop of a hat, love to talk about. Just putting that out there, but I would recommend to anybody. And John Cho is in it rather prominently. I also just kind of really like that guy. I think I find him to be very likable, and I generally root for him in any movie, even AID.
Yeah.
Even if the movie isn't great, I'm usually a John Cho supporter. So
Yeah, I agree.
John Cho's great. He plays Steve Cho in Better Luck Tomorrow, a movie I highly recommend.
Cool. Yeah, you have mentioned it on mic before, but not on our podcast. It came up on Down the Yellow Brick Pod.
Oh, that's right.
That makes sense.
Yeah, we were
God,
talking
man,
about
you have a good brain for that.
John M. Chu, Crazy Rich Asians, and there was a connection you made there.
That's true.
Yeah, cool. But all right, well done. And so
You're bringing us home.
I'm bringing you home, and
Okay.
to take a page from your book, Emilio, you said this once in a prior Unlikely Shared Universe. If either of you get this, you are winning a prize.
All right, let's go.
Pressure's too high.
So, one of the major signposts in the Blair Witch Project is the disappearance of Josh at the beginning of the film's final act. Let's say that Josh makes it out of this scenario alive, having gotten lost in the woods on account of once again hearing the strange noise attributed to the Blair Witch and becoming so perturbed by it that he sought to investigate further and hopefully end it. That would not exactly be the outcome, but Josh would eventually find his way back to civilization, opting not to go back and investigate the whereabouts of his Witch Project comrades, due to fear of getting lost in the woods yet again, and that they would believe he betrayed them. As a result, Josh decides to hitchhike his way to the West Coast and live a nomadic life by the new name of Andrew. And one of his first stops on this journey is Seattle, where he becomes friends with a young man named Ben. As Andrew continues living nomadically, he and Ben do not see each other for a long stretch of time, despite the strength of the bond that they've made, until Andrew's travels bring him back to Seattle and cause him to show up at Ben's doorstep one night to some surprise about a decade later. Andrew and Ben rekindle their friendship, and while hanging out with a few friends at a party, they find themselves daring one another to make an amateur pornographic film together and submit it to a local festival. As their bond is continually assessed and the wheels start to get in motion on this film, Ben earnestly approaches his girlfriend to inform her of this experience, but this action understandably creates some complications in their relationship. Nonetheless, Ben and Andrew proceed to film their concept and find the experience is not as personally fulfilling as they may have guessed, and never actually prepare their film for submission to this festival. But they seem to be glad that they at least tried. In the times that ensue, Andrew continues to live his nomadic life, perhaps coming into the orbit of some people depicted living that way in an Oscar-winning film. But things don't go as well for Ben, as others see it anyway. Following his attempt at making a porno, Ben's girlfriend ultimately leaves him and his mental health goes into decline. But after a bit of misguided soul-searching, Ben decides to move down the West Coast to California and purchase a mountainside cabin. And once settled there, he assumes the new name Joseph and decides to connect to the outside world and continue his dreams of a sort of filmic recognition by soliciting documentarians over Craigslist and giving them a false sob story in which he claims to have terminal cancer before kidnapping his guests and expressing his desires for friendship to them before brutally murdering them and compiling the footage into videos in his own collection.
Oh, now
This is like the Mobius strip of
now I'm extra confused.
of Unlikely Shared Universe.
All right.
Okay.
I'm like, did I black out?
That's how I felt too. I was like,
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, as soon as I knew you were doing Josh, I was like, I'm not going to get this because I was looking through his IMDb and I was like, I don't think I know anything this guy's in.
Yeah, for a minute I thought you were talking about Zach and Miri make a porno.
that was my first guess because that's the only
That's-
movie
yeah.
I know with this concept.
That's an interesting guess, and it's pretty close in time to the movie I actually
That's
connected it
why
to.
I was like, it lines up like
Yeah.
2006.
Yeah.
Or 7 or something around that time. Dude, you have got
Yeah,
me, man. I'm
I
not
don't
winning
know.
a prize today.
No
All
prizes
right.
here.
So the movie where Joshua Leonard and Mark Duplass come together is Hump Day.
Okay.
This is a movie that came out in
I've
2009.
heard of it. Yeah.
And it's directed by the late great Lynn Shelton.
Oh yeah.
And in this movie, it's the only other movie I've seen with Joshua Leonard from the Blair Witch Project.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've just given you a brief summary of the plot, but So Blair Witch before, Hump Day in the middle, Creep. At the
Yeah, I
end.
mean, the fact that the two of them are in a movie together, that's kind of like, that's perfect for this, I think.
I think so.
I agree.
I think this is very well done.
Thank you.
I also just tying back to the way mumblecore has just hung around this conversation.
Yeah.
The whole time it comes rounding third base and is colliding into home plate now. That's amazing. Wow.
Altogether, I think this was a great round of unlikely shared universes.
I think some pretty inspired stuff for sure.
Yeah.
Well, we did it. We talked found footage films. Are there any last things we want to say about the movies we talked about? Found footage in general?
We found them.
We found
these three films.
It does make me like curious to see what I will think about other found footage films when I find them.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Like I still haven't seen Cloverfield or Paranormal Activity, or if you'd call it that, Unfriended, or like Wreck, or like any of the other movies that often come up in this kind of category. And it's like we've chosen a group that represent an evolution, and I'm curious as the future goes on to see what more will be added to that continuum. Like, will the style, will it go more in the searching direction? Will it maybe go a little more retro in the Blair Witch direction? Time will tell.
Totally.
Yeah, I think so. I will say too, like Shaun said, I've never really been a huge fan of found footage films. I've never really seeked them out before. I don't know if I'm going to really seek them out too much after this either. And that's not to say that I didn't have a great time talking about these movies or that I didn't find them interesting or compelling, but I do find I have to turn on a part of my brain to watch these movies in a way that I don't normally with other films. And that's by design. I just think my life is spread so thin that
you got to make some tough decisions.
I got to make some decisions. But that's not to say that I didn't have a great time talking about these movies or jumping in and appreciating how these films play with some of the conventions, the typical conventions of movies, in ways that I think are worthy of conversation and introspection.
Yeah. Totally. I was glad to go back to basics with Blair Witch Project. And then I do think that Creep and Searching are really interesting to look at in terms of evolution of this genre. This is kind of why we chose these three in particular. And I think they're both bringing something really different to the table.
Sure. They're all a little different.
Yeah. And that's something that was very cool, I think, about revisiting these three or visiting these three together. And I agree that I probably will not, I'm not going to go seeking out a bunch of found footage. Like I saw like Paranormal Activities, some of them in theaters because they were coming out when I was in college.
Yeah. And those are like movies you see in groups. And stuff.
They were movies that I went to see with groups. And then we like went back and like slept in the like dorm lounge because it was like, oh, too scary to go back and sleep alone. And I think that's such a unique experience that I'm not going to have now.
Sure.
That I'm like, I've had that. I'm good. I had that with Paranormal Activity 2 and 3 or whatever, and I'm good.
Yeah.
But these three were still really fun to dig into.
Awesome. Well, I'm really excited about what's coming up next.
For sure.
Yeah. Last year, we started a kind of mini cycle of suggestions. Oops, all suggestion box, holiday season.
Suggestion gift box.
Exactly. We're going to approach every episode from a perspective of these movies being unorthodox holiday films.
Yeah.
So there is a holiday element to pretty much everything that you're going to hear going forward, minus a bonus episode or two through to the end of the year.
Yeah.
We're going to have some really fun stuff to talk about. And I know the next thing we're going to talk about is going to be really fun.
For sure. And worry not, we're not jumping straight into full on traditional Christmas movies. Like we said, we're going a little more unconventional. So what are we starting with?
Well, with the timing of our episode releases, we're pretty close to Halloween right now. And so we're going to discuss a movie that bridges the gap between Halloween and Christmas quite nicely. Emilio, this is your suggestion. Do you want to say it?
Sure. It is Black Christmas. The original, because there have been a couple remakes that have come out since, but this is from 1974. This stars Olivia Hussey. It stars Margot Kidder. Those are the two names that are jumping out to me. But this is a movie that is definitely an unorthodox holiday film. This is a movie that I'll just say I saw about 4 or 5 years ago, and it really blew my hair back. And I'm really excited to get to talk about it more in depth next time we get on the mics.
Well, I'm excited to finally see this movie. You've hyped it up, I think, very suitably. Can't wait to discuss it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to revisiting it. In addition to this podcast, you can follow us on TikTok and Instagram at Sleepless Cinematic Pod. You can contact us via email. We would love to hear from you. Write to us at sleeplesscinematicpod@gmail.com. You can follow me, Madeline, on Letterboxd at Patroness of Cats.
And you can follow me, Julian, on Letterboxd at Julian_Barthold. If you are listening to us for the first time, thank you for finding us. Or if this is the 5th or 6th or even the 70th time you've listened to us, thank you so much for sticking with us. We have really grown to love doing this, and it means the world to have our budding listenership grow.
And if you have not already, we'd ask you, return listener, to please write a positive review and rate us on your podcast platform of choice. This is one of the best ways for new listeners to find us and help our podcast take its next steps. You can also keep it grassroots. You can tell a friend to tell a friend about the Sleepless Cinematic Podcast. That helps too.
Peach Fuzz!